Hello everyone, in this video we're going to talk about how we can graph inequalities on number lines. So what the type of inequalities that we're talking about in this video are inequalities that just have one variable. So we're not talking about a function here of an inequality where we have an x and a y, just one variable. So it could be x, could be any letter. And we're going to graph the solutions to the inequality, or the numbers that would make the inequality true if we plug them in for the variable on a number line. So what is this going to do? It's going to show us all the solutions of the inequality on the number line. So once we have our graph on the number line, what does it actually mean? Well, there's going to be either an open or a closed circle, or a dot, if you will. And that's going to be placed on the number that we have in our inequality. So for number 1, we have a -10 there. So we're going to put a dot, either open or closed. We'll talk about which one, on -10. And then for number 2, we have 1.5. So we'd put an open or a closed circle on 1.5. Number 3, -1/2 would be where our circle would go. And then number 4 would be where our circle will go. So now, when do we put an open? When do we put a closed circle? Well, if the number is not a solution, we would put an open circle. If the number is a solution, we would put a closed circle. Well, what do we mean by is or is not a solution? Well, it depends on what our inequality symbol is. If we have less than or greater than, it's going to be an open circle. Because if I look at number 2, x is less than 1.5. So can x be 1.5? No, right? It has to be greater than 1.5. So because of that, I would put an open circle on 1.5, meaning I am not including 1.5 as one of my solutions. On the other end, if I have a closed circle, that's going to be if I have less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. So let's look at number 1. X is less than or equal to -10. Well, would -10 be a solution there? Well, yes, it would, because it is equal to -10. So when we put our circle on -10, we're going to shade it because we're saying that -10 would also be a solution to this inequality. Now, once we put our open or closed circle, we're going to shade our number line either to the left or to the right, and we're going to add an arrow to the end of that, indicating that it continues on in that direction forever. So how do we know which way to go, left or right? Well, if something is less than, then we're going to go to the left. If something is greater than, we're going to go to the right. And that applies for the or equal to symbols as well. So one thing that you could do to always make sure you get this right is always put the variable term on the left side of the inequality. So if you do that, like on number 1, 2, and 3, the direction that the symbol is pointing is going to tell you which way to shade. So what I mean by that, for number 1, we have less than or equal to. So it's like if I made this an arrow, which way am I going? To the left. Number 2, if I made this an arrow, which way am I going? To the right. Okay, so that's going to tell us which way to shade our line. Number 4, we're going to switch that around, and we'll get to that one in just a minute so that we can make sure we shade in the correct direction. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and jump into our 4 examples here. Number 1, we have x is less than or equal to -10. So I'm going to draw just a short little number line here, about this long, and I know I need to have -10 on my number line, right? So for the purpose of these examples, I'm just going to put -10 in the middle, and we'll add a number to the left of it and to the right of it, okay? So now we have -10, it is less than or equal to, so that's going to tell me to put a closed circle on -10. All right, and now the direction of my inequality symbol is to the left, so I'm going to shade to the left here. So I'm just going to add some shading to the left side of my number line, add some shading over here on my arrow so that it is clear, that is a little more bold, I guess if you will, to the left side of -10. So that's what our solutions would be for that inequality. We don't have to list out every single number because that would not be very efficient or practical, right? Because there are an infinite amount of numbers that are less than or equal to -10. Okay, not infinity, not every number, but I'm just saying it would continue on forever to that direction. So the graph itself is our answer, okay? All right, number 2, x is greater than 1.5. So let's make our number line here, and let's put 1.5 in the middle, 1.5, and then let's just call this 2.5 and this 0.5. All right, so now I'm going to put an open circle on 1.5 because we're not including 1.5. It is just greater than 1.5. So now I can shade to the right here because I want values that are greater than 1.5, and on a number line, greater than would be to the right, okay? All right, number 3, draw our number line on here. X is greater than or equal to -1.5. So let's put -1.5 right here. And then once again, let's just put -0.5 there. and let's put -2 right there. So we're going up. The increments here doesn't necessarily matter. A lot of times on these, especially if you're doing it on some kind of online curriculum, obviously that number line would already be there. So numbering the number line is not the number one objective here. It is graphing the actual inequality, okay? So I said that because like on number 2, we went up or down by 1, right? 1.5, 2.5. Here on number 3, we're just going in increments of half, which is fine as well, it doesn't matter. So now we have greater than or equal to. So let's put a closed circle here on -1.5, and greater than means we're gonna go to the right. Okay, so it's gonna look very similar to number 2 in terms of the fact that we're shading to the right, but notice on number 2 we didn't have the or equal to, and number 3 we did. So that's why number 3 circle is closed and number 2 was open, okay? All right, our last one here, 4 is greater than x. Okay, well what I like to do is switch that around because I always like to have my variable on the left side of my inequality. So this is gonna be x, let's put 4 here. Well, if I'm switching everything around, it's gonna switch my inequality symbol too, right? So if 4 is greater than x, then that must mean x is less than 4. Okay, so now let's draw our number line here. And that didn't, there we go. Let's draw a line, there we go. All right, so let's put 4 in the middle, and let's go with 5 here and 3 right there. So open circle on 4 because it is just less than 4. And less than means we're gonna go to the left. Okay, so shading to the left, making sure I shade on my arrow as well. And that is what number 4 would look like, okay? So that's how we can graph inequalities on a number line.